Welcome back, Buffett fans. I am your host, David Kay, and welcome back to all the stories that I can tell. Hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the notification, and we're going to start this episode off talking about another great Jimmy Buffett song and experience, and it's going to be at a different Florida key, not the one that we normally visit. Here we go. Travis McGee's still in Cedar Key. That's what old John MacDonald said. Those were the opening words to one of my all-time favorite Jimmy Buffett songs, Incommunicado, which came off of Jimmy's 1981 album, Coconut Telegraph. So we are in Cedar Key right now, Cedar Key, Florida. And when you normally think about the Florida Keys, you don't think about Cedar Key. It is not what part of the chain that we think of as the Florida Keys that stretches from Miami down to Key West, Monroe County. This is a series of islands that are on the west coast of Florida, otherwise referred to as the Nature Coast. And a lot of this is very pristine out here. So stick with me. We are going to learn more about John MacDonald, Travis McGee, and Cedar Key Incommunicado. So who was Travis McGee? Travis McGee was the hero in a series of 21 novels written by author John MacDonald. By profession, Travis McGee was a salvage consultant, and basically what that was is he reclaimed lost fortunes for other people and took 50% of it for himself. That was the basics of the story. It was a series of adventure, thrillers, murder mysteries as well too, and the hero was Travis McGee. And you can see why Jimmy Buffett loved this character and wanted to reference him in the song Incommunicado. He was a beach bum, Travis McGee was. He lived on a houseboat that he won in a card game. He was a ladies' man, and he seemed to get himself into a lot of misadventures that he would always end up solving the crime or coming to a conclusion at the end. So you could see why that would be such a popular series for somebody like Jimmy Buffett during the 60s, 70s, and even into the early 1980s. Now, John MacDonald, as I mentioned, wrote 21 books in the Travis McGee series. Each one of the books had a color in the title. Each one of the books was set in either Florida or somewhere right around the Caribbean Gulf Coast area. However, I've talked to a number of people and referenced a lot of things on the Facebook pages, and nobody can really recall a book where Cedar Key was mentioned as a place where Travis McGee was. So we're going to take Jimmy at his word that Travis McGee was still in Cedar Key, but for some people that have read all the books, Cedar Key doesn't really seem to come up in any of them. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Who knows? A couple of interesting facts about John MacDonald. John MacDonald was a very popular writer in the 1960s, 70s, and into the early 80s when he passed away, 1984, I believe it was. He wrote the entire series of the Travis McGee books, like I said, 21 books. He sold over 70 million copies of his books over the years. However, the most famous book that he ever wrote is not one of the Travis McGee series. It's actually a book that came out in 1957, and it was called The Executioners. Now, we may not know what that title is, but when I tell you what it actually became renamed as when it was made into a movie, you're all going to go, aha. 1957, he put out the book, The Executioners, which was a big hit. In 1962, they turned that book into a movie, but changed the title. And the title that they changed it to was Cape Fear. The great movie starring Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum, later to be remade with Nick Nolte and Robert De Niro and Jessica Lange. An amazing book, an amazing story, an amazing movie, and introduced the world to one of the greatest villains of all time, Max Cady. So that's what John MacDonald did. He was a fantastic writer. I am somewhat perplexed when we hear about Travis McGee. 21 novels written on him, and this is not a shot at John MacDonald. This is not a shot at anything like that, but without the song Incommunicado, I would not have ever heard that title. So I understand that those books were popular back in the day. It's unfortunate that they didn't have the legs to still remain popular today, at least by those measurements that they were when they were first released. So Jimmy Buffett has given, I think, the world the opportunity to reintroduce themselves to John MacDonald and to Travis McGee. So I think we have Jimmy to thank for that, because otherwise for someone me and my age and my generation, I would not have heard of them. But John MacDonald, a very accomplished writer. Travis McGee sounded like a real scoundrel and a real adventurer and a real ladies' man, and I could see why Jimmy Buffett mentioned him in a song. If there was a alter ego, superhero, spy thriller version of Jimmy Buffett, it would be Travis McGee. So, fun fact, the original character name that John MacDonald wanted to name what became Travis McGee, wanted to name him Dallas McGee. But it was after the assassination of President Kennedy in 1963 that John MacDonald did not feel that was appropriate to do so. So what he did was he changed the title character's name from Dallas McGee to Travis McGee, and he named Travis McGee after Travis Air Force Base. So Dallas McGee was the original name, became Travis McGee. So I am here at the Cedar Key Library. It's a very small library, it's a very small island. But one of the things I'm really fascinated with is if they have any John MacDonald books in there, specifically any of the Travis McGee series, and that they play up on the words of the song Incommunicado. So I'm gonna go inside and see, is Travis McGee still in Cedar Key? Let's go find out. And there it is, inside of the Cedar Key Library. John MacDonald, Travis McGee. Travis McGee is still in Cedar Key.
That's what old John MacDonald said.
That's what old John MacDonald said. So I am inside of the Cedar Key Library, and I'm over here talking with the wonderful librarian. She doesn't want to be on camera, but you'll be able to pick up her voice. And Jimmy Buffett's got a little bit of a reputation down here in Cedar Key. So if you could go ahead and stay.
Well, before he got super famous, he would play local areas, but he would come to Cedar Key because it was quiet, nobody bothered him. He was playing one day during a very slow weekend, and we were down there, and a local character named, oh my goodness, I can't think of his name now. But he asked Jimmy Buffett if he would take requests, and Jimmy said sure. And he said, "Do you know any Kenny Rogers?" And Jimmy Buffett said, well, it was Frank Ham, his name was. And he said, "No, Frank, I don't know, but can I sing you one of my songs?" And but he used to come and party all the time with us. He's been out on the boat with us. He's been to local hunting camps to do some hunting over the weekend with some local families, and he was a very nice guy.
It's outstanding. Still is a very nice guy from everything that we know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that
You're
story.
welcome.
I appreciate
You're
it very much. So Travis McGee is still in Cedar Key. So I am walking right down the middle of the street, which is the main tourist area here in Cedar Key, Florida. Now, if we were going to compare Cedar Key to Key West, this would be their version of Duval Street. All 4 restaurants and 2 stores is what it is basically here. About a quarter of a mile walk. If you come down to Cedar Key, Florida, and you're expecting to find something like Key West, you're going to be greatly disappointed, because what you're not going to find are 30,000 tourists. You're not going to find scooters beeping at all hours of the day, oversized pickup trucks causing a lot of noise on the city streets, constant large jet planes flying overhead. You're not going to find Starbucks on every corner, or McDonald's, or every other commercial place in the world. That is not Cedar Key. The population here in Cedar Key is about 682 people. They don't even have a traffic light within 20 miles of here. It's amazing. 682 people. My wife and I went out last night to a couple of the local establishments, and I swear we talked to and became friends with at least half the population of Cedar Key. They are very salt of the earth people. They are very kind people, and this is their island. A number of them, several of them that we talked to, are former Key West conchs that have moved down here because Key West just no longer gave them that island experience that they grew up with and loved, and it outpriced them. So Cedar Key is kind of a salvage. It is so quiet down here, and that's the first thing that you notice when you come down here. You don't have the constant noise that is Key West. Don't get me wrong, I love Key West, but it is a noisy, busy island. Cedar Key, if you ever wanted to go incommunicado, I can't think of another place that you would want to do it. So one of the great things here about Cedar Key in this area is that unlike Key West, which again, I love Key West, but Key West has become so commercialized and so built up and so crowded and so loud over the years. That will never happen here in Cedar Key. That is because almost all of the land surrounding here has been purchased and acquired by the state and federal governments, and it is being held as a nature reserve and preserve for the generations to come and explore nature and find it in its pristine condition. So there are hiking trails, there is fishing, there is boating, there is kayaking. There are so many things that you can do here in the Cedar Key area, and it is so pristine. And in many ways, I say this again, it's kind of the anti-Key West. You have all of the beauty of the Gulf of Mexico right here. You have the islands that you can visit. You have the water activities that you can do, but you don't have the loud jet skis. You don't have the motorcycles tearing up and down Duval Street. You don't have the loud trucks and the planes flying over the head and the loud bands and all of that. So I'll put it this way. If you want to be like Travis McGee and you want to go incommunicado, Cedar Key is the place for you. Come down, get some peace and quiet, explore a different Florida Key, and really learn what it's like to live the island life. Very quiet, very peaceful, and one with nature. So thank you, John MacDonald. Thank you, Travis McGee. Thank you, Jimmy Buffett, for writing Incommunicado. And please hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the notification. I appreciate y'all watching. From all the stories I can tell, I'll see you next time.